Tuesday, April 21st to order. Roll call, please.
Mr. Gallagher.
Here.
Mr. Carlton. Mr. Carlton.
Sorry, I had to unmute. I'm here.
Mr. Bergeron.
He.
Ms. Owens.
Here.
Mr. Kuhn.
Present.
Ms. Giello.
Here.
Mayor Mamula.
Yes. All right, approval of the agenda. Rick, any changes?
Just one change to the published agenda. We would add that there will be a conversation with Lee Boyles, who's CEO of St. Anthony's Summit.
All right. So before I introduce Lee, let me just say that the way this sort of came about, having Lee with us today, the council wrote a letter that we were in the process of sending to Centura, and as a courtesy, I called Lee yesterday to let him know that it would be going out, and he texted me a little while later offering to come and talk to us at any point. And I got back to him and said, how about tomorrow? So without further ado, Lee Boyles, the CEO of St. Anthony, is here with us. Honestly, to talk a little bit about the whole COVID that we're going through, but mainly to answer any of your questions about testing. So I'll let Lee start with some opening remarks, and then the council can ask whatever questions it would like. Lee, take it away.
All right, sure. Thanks a lot, Mayor Eric, for having me. And yeah, and again, really thank you for that courtesy call today. And I guess I'll just give a little bit of background information for everybody, and then I'm more than happy to answer any questions. So I'll keep this short. But you know, we've been prepping at the hospital for this whole thing going back as a system of Centura, but also Summit going back to January. So we've been fortunate to have stockpiles of, you know, supplies, of masks, of gowns, of drugs, the limited testing that we can get our hands on, we've had that. So from the very beginning, we've really worked hard to secure that, and also then partnering with the county and working very hard on, like everybody you see around the country, preparing for the worst. You know, what if we see this surge? What if we're overrun as a hospital? Where are we going to put people? And those plans of surge and capacity, thank God we've never had to put into use. So I would just tell you, as a hospital, throughout this whole thing, from the very first positive person that we had, the first positive in Colorado, we've handled that exceptionally well. Our caregivers have been doing a phenomenal job. We have really yet to ever run into a situation here at the hospital where we've had more than 3 or 4 positive COVIDs in the hospital at one point in time. And of those positives that we do have, most are discharged within a day or two. So we've been in an excellent spot as far as capacity is concerned, conserving PPE and protective equipment so that we could care for anybody who's going to hit our doors. So our physicians, our staff, everybody has been in that position. Knowing that we're kind of experts in that PPE realm, we've worked with the county and trained and fit all of the first responders for PPE when this first started. Again, just preparing for that surge that really has never come to us. We've really held steady, and I know that's been a question of everybody, is what have we seen at the hospital? We like everybody else on this call knows, when those resorts shut off and those lifts quit spinning, our volumes drop off the cliff as well. So just like any other business, any other restaurant, you know, those surgical volumes, those admissions, all of those things are completely down to nothing. So we've always had the staff, and thank God the PPE and supplies to take care of anybody who hits our doors or be able to handle those surges, which we just haven't seen. I think the partnership with the county has been great, preparing for those surge plans, testing the first responders and our frontline folks. So we've always had that testing ability. And like I shared with you yesterday, Eric, the support from the community has been unbelievable, from donations to restaurant folks to our foundation. When we've had people who are uninsured that we have to isolate and put in a hotel or put in an isolation up in Summit, we've had banks donate money for pulse oximeters. We have a contract with Alpine Air to get these people on oxygen. The transfers out have been pretty minimal. We're used to taking care of really critically ill people, but with a respiratory disease such as COVID, no different than high altitude or pneumonia, if you're struggling with a respiratory illness, it's in your best interest to get you down somewhere below 9,000 feet. So we do transfer out, we've only transferred out probably 9 or 10 patients down the hill that have required ventilation down to St. Anthony Hospital. And they've done extremely well. Once we've gotten them to lower elevation, we've been sitting in a pretty good spot. When it comes to testing, kind of the topic you want to discuss, we have really from the get-go followed the state guidelines and the CDC guidelines as far as testing. So right away from the beginning, we tested all tier 1 level people. So if you met admission criteria, you'd be tested, or if you were a frontline healthcare worker, you were going to be tested, and then we take care of you after that. Once those guidelines started kind of opening up a little bit more down to tier 2, which is going to include anybody 65 and older, anybody with other complications and comorbidities, high risk OB, as well as first responders, that level of testing opened up shortly after that first tier. So we've always been able to do that testing in partnership with the county. We've done that through Stadium. We've also been able to test first responders out of the ED when necessary. So we've always done our best to conserve the testing for the critically ill that are going to hit our doors, as well as frontline workers and EMS and first responders. And we've also conserved those tests, knowing that if we ever did get a surge or we ever became overwhelmed, we're going to need tests in hand to start testing people. So I think that's been our main prerogative of we've prepared for the worst. That has not come, and now we're in a situation where the testing is kind of flipped to now we need this mass testing throughout the community, which historically, when this first started, we have just not had that testing capability. And so that's why we've really conserved it, done our best to test everybody that needed and met the criteria that was, available at that time. I know, with the article that came out Friday, I cannot tell you how Vail Health has that many tests. I cannot tell you the quality of those tests, what medium they're using or anything else. All I know is what we have secured as far as testing is the best quality test we can get our hands on, because as this pandemic has gone on, we have seen, pretty shabby supplies be released that we can't use. We've seen testing that hasn't had the sensitivity to test to the levels we want. And so we've been very cautious about the tests that we use, not only here in Summit, but throughout the system. And so we're I think from that very first positive gentleman to where we sit now, I think we're very fortunate as a county to not have been overrun, to not have had, situations where we're looking to stack people over at Peak One Surgery Center or our Keystone Ski Clinic and things like that. And now we're in this situation where we're trying to flip a switch to really wide area testing throughout the county. And that's what we're trying to get our arms around. And we do now, we don't have the testing available to just open it up for anybody who raises their hands and wants a test, but we do now have the ability to test anybody that is symptomatic. So we're now down to that tier 3 criteria, which we were planning on last week as well, which is going to be available to the county. And so we're working out really what is the easiest process for that for any community member to get to that level of testing. That's really kind of the main gist of what I would say, Mayor.
So with that tier 3 testing, when do you think you'll have whatever your guidelines will be, and how are you going to push that out to the community?
So our plan right now is we have a press release drafted. I met with the county with Sarah and Amy yesterday, because this is something we've been working towards for a while. We've always been in partnership with the county. We just have not had the testing. So to answer your question, we're hoping to get that press release out tomorrow to have an easy process where any community member, whether they're a CHPG member or even an unattached patient, would be able to call one number, be screened by one of our healthcare providers, and then we're going to do that testing out of the CCOM location in Frisco. And so that's our process right now. We just are trying to set up one real easy number for people to call and have that work as smoothly as possible. So right now it's going to be, we're just trying to clarify that for the press release, and then we're going to get that out, Summit Daily, social media, and then we can always direct people to our website for those testing protocols too. But it would work as, Mayor, if you needed a test, you would call one of our CHPG clinics. They're going to screen you. That physician's going to order that test, and then you're going to show up at CCOM and have that test done. Those tests are being done right now in-house by St. Anthony Hospital. So our turnaround on most of those tests is less than 24 hours.
Thanks, Lee. Okay, questions from the council, and then we have some community questions we'll potentially get to if we have some time.
So,
Absolutely.
so Lee, Eagle County supposedly has 486 positive cases. We have like 101. Eagle County, according to what I've been able to find out, has been tested 2,200 people, where we tested 300 people. I don't understand why St. Anthony or Centura can't get hold of tests. I mean, is Vail Health that much more powerful in the market than you guys? I mean, you're all over the United States.
Well, that's a really good question. It's one that I can't answer, honestly. I would love to know how they were able to stockpile that many tests. I know they use a different test than we do. They're using a saline flush test. At least that's what's being used in Summit County now. We've tried to always stick with the swab test, which we know is the most reliable and is going to have the highest sensitivity. I can't honestly tell you, because I know as a system, to use the other example of just supplies, masks, gowns, things like that, we've done a phenomenal job securing those things as a system, where other systems have knocked on our door, whether it's UC Health, whether it's Children's, asking us, can you spare any supply because we don't have any? We've done the same with our tests as well. So I don't know how they've gotten their hands on that and how they opened up that testing so widely from the very beginning, but that was not the guidelines that we were given from the state to follow. I'm happy that they're able to test that many people, but I think we've done the best with the resources we've had. And we've also, as a system, helped out those other communities in need that may not have had testing. So I don't know how they got it. I don't know how they tested that many people. And that's all that I know. Trust me, we have tremendous purchasing power within Centura.
Yeah.
When this all hit the fan, we, thank God, stockpiled as much as we could on the supply side. The testing was not available. And it's not like placing an order for 1,000 tests and you all of a sudden get them. We were having tests, not only Centura, but other systems as well, orders that were diverted to the community's most need. And so that's really out of our control, because I just, again, I use the example of supplies. When you see around the country people running out of supplies and ventilators and those type of things, as a system, we've done a tremendous job conserving that. But I don't know. And I wish I could answer your question. I wish I had an answer for that, because we have not had access to that testing. And
is there any validity in the claim that the more you test, the more they'll give you? Like, in other words, stockpiling is all well and good, but is there a kind of a Oz, kind of a federal testing mechanism that they says, all right, well, Eagles has used 300 or Centura has used 300 tests, yet Eagle has used 2,200. Well, Eagle needs more tests now, and since Centura is conserving the tests, it's not a high priority.
No, I would say part of that is true. So they're going to replenish as you use them. That is very accurate. So if I'm up here in Summit running 100 tests or 50 tests or whatever it is, and I'm sending those to either the state lab or to who we use, which is LabCorp, they're going to replenish that with what they have available. So if I used 1,000 tomorrow, I'm not guaranteed I'm going to get 1,000 back, and that's where we've been taking the conservative approach, because although in theory that's how it works or how they want it to work, that may not always be a case, because if we use 100 here tomorrow, and especially early on when all our tests were coming from the state, and we used 100, but the metro is getting overrun, we're not going to get 100 tests. We're going to get maybe 25, 30, maybe 50. That's really, it's been such a moving target. And then part of the testing piece as well from the beginning, and why we were conserving as well, is we may admit a person, we see a sick person in the ED, we admit them to the floor and we run a test. We may not get that test back for 4 days. So part of the whole testing thing is just knowing who meets the criteria to test, and is a test going to really change your clinical course of action for that person? And the answer to that is most likely not. Whether you test positive or whether you display all the clinical symptoms, we're going to act as if you have it and tell you to stay in your home, self-isolate, take your temperature regularly throughout the day, and that's the best course of action we're going to give you from a clinical physician perspective to care for you. We don't need a test to do that. And so that's where what we've done to this point, I think, has fit our needs. And now, because of what the governor wants and what they're saying you need to meet certain testing requirements, now it's a whole nother ball game. But part of what you're saying is true, Jeff. If we tested 50 or we're on a regular basis submitting tests to the lab, we do get those replenished, but it is not a given one for one, for sure.
Hey, Lee, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to look in the rearview mirror. I want to look forward.
Yep.
Pretty much the discussion to date has been, what have you done? You know, why you've done it. You've been following the state guidelines. I think we're at a point in terms of Summit County and our economy. We want to start moving forward. Our businesses have really had to suck it up now for quite some time, and obviously they're struggling.
Yeah.
So for me, what's important is not that we're now contest at tier 3, because we all know in order to responsibly move from phase 1 to phase 2 from an economic point of view, we've got to be able to start testing much more broadly to see who is positive, do the tracing and the tracking, be able to isolate and quarantine those people, whatever the appropriate terms are. But I'm hearing nothing in this discussion that's really talking about where do we go from here and starting to be able to responsibly start opening up our economy for our businesses, to get our employees back to work, so on and so forth. So I don't really want to dwell on, like I say,
Yep.
I don't want to be backward looking. I want to be, how do you move beyond your tier 3 for testing so that we can really get going on some broad testing and be able to responsibly and competently start moving from phase 1 into phase 2, and then hopefully phase 3, sooner rather than later.
Yep.
Let's
Yep.
talk about that.
Okay, absolutely. Good point, Gary. And I can speak to that, where right now we have secured enough testings to start doing tier 3, which is going to be anybody in the county that is symptomatic. I don't believe there's anybody I don't believe there's anybody in the state that is just simply saying, I want to test out of curiosity, will you test me? So we have the test to now be able to open that up right now, 5 days a week, we're going to be testing, and it's anybody that's symptomatic going forward. Our plan is to get that opened on Saturdays and Sundays as well. So we have anybody who needs a test is going to be able to have one within a 24-hour period, which is what the guideline that I have that I'm going off of from public health, so that we will have the ability to test anybody, first responders, CHPG, or anybody unattached, any day of the week going forward. Right now, we're going to have that Monday through Friday. We're going to open that door up. So, and that's mild symptoms. So if you have any of the symptoms, you're going to be able to be tested at our CCOM site. And And the process that we have in place is to do that going forward as long as we have to. So I'm thinking beyond just let's meet the testing criteria that our county and public health and the state are wanting us to have to get to the levels you're talking about, but also we know we're going to have a sustained effort. And that's what we're looking at too, is to not only let's test 1,000 people in the next 2 weeks, but let's also have the capability to continue doing it through the summer and into the fall, because this thing is not going away.
In your opinion, in terms of a medical professional, are we in a position now to start moving from phase 1 into phase 2 based upon the level of testing that you feel you guys can provide?
You know, I'll answer that as best I can, Gary. So here, I don't know. I'm just speaking to the testing criteria I have. I'm going to tell you, I'm not well versed in what the governor and what is being required to open up a county. But what I want to do, in my opinion, yes, I believe what we have seen at the hospital, and again, we haven't done this mass testing that everybody is, that we're wanting to do now, like you said. I agree, looking forward, we got to get busy testing. But as we sit here right now, we have not seen near the amount of patients that have been sick or needing admission from Summit County hitting our hospital doors or hitting our clinics. I think the social distancing has worked. I think the masking, I think all the precautions we have done to this point have worked extremely well. My thing that I would like to do is really start using some of our own modeling with public health and sharing the data to show that even with mass testing, yes, we need to do that, but I really feel we are pretty darn safe as a county and as a community. We've not been overrun by sick people in the hospital. We've not seen a mass number of even remotely critically sick people come to the hospital. That alone, I would like to see how we incorporate in with the county's data to, I don't know how it gets into petitioning and all of those type of things, but I would say at this point in time, we are very safe as a community, but we still have to continue taking the necessary precautions. I'm sorry, Gary, I don't know the different government phases of opening up the county. I can just speak to it from a hospital standpoint.
And I think the challenge there, though, is that we don't, I get it. I get that the hospital isn't overrun. I do have a question, but I think the challenge is we don't know how many people have it. We don't know how close we are to hotspots breaking out and that sort of thing if we don't have the testing. And so I think that's great. I think it's great that we're getting more testing. I do have a few questions. One, when will Saturday and Sunday come? And what are the hours for those 5 days per week? And I have another one too.
Yeah, so right now we're going to be doing it out of CCOM 9 to 2, and we're going to expand that based on the volume that we need. So we have the staffing. If we needed to do that 8 to 5, we have the staffing available to do that, because all of the resorts, we closed all of our ski clinics. So we pulled those, like the latest one, from Breckenridge to the CCOM site to be able to man those stations. So right now it's 9 to 2. The Saturday one we're looking to do as soon as possible. I'm sorry I don't have a date on that, because still our kind of easy button for the community is to still call CHPG, even if you're not a CHPG patient, to be screened, so we at least know you meet the minimum criteria to be tested, which is you just have to be symptomatic.
And so, okay, great. And a Friday test. So if somebody comes in on a Friday afternoon, they won't get the results back until what, Tuesday?
No, the turnaround time. So that is part of why we wanted to do it in conjunction with an actual physician. So if I test you on a Friday, we're going to get that result back within 24 hours. Those physicians are on call that they're going to see that positive or negative within Epic and be able to call you on Saturday or Sunday, whenever the test comes back. So that's kind of some of the logistics that we want to make sure we're taking that time not only to test you, but educate you on what you have to do after that.
Okay, and last question was, you said that the transfers out have been minimal, but we got a figure, something like 90-ish% of people who need hospitalization have been going to Denver.
No,
That's not true.
I can read you exact numbers if you want. So
Yeah.
we've tested that have come to the ED or that have needed to be admitted out of the hospital, 81 patients. Of those 81 that we've tested, 32 have been positive. We've had 16 of those 81 patients that we've tested be transferred to down to the Metro. Most of those go to St. Anthony Hospital. And of those 16 that we've transferred, only 9 of those have been positive. The reason for us transferring is no different from high altitude or pneumonia or anything else, because anybody up here, even locals, but anybody in Summit that has anything respiratory, you're going to do better in the Metro. It's not that we can't take care of you. Just from a clinical perspective, if you're already struggling to get oxygen in your lungs, you're probably going to do better lower than 9,000 feet. So that's our reason. It's not as if we can't take care of people like that. We take care of very, very critically ill people, but the nature of this disease, you're going to do better in a sister facility down the hill. Of those 81 positive, we've admitted 26. Of those 26, only half have been positive. So, like I said early on, we've never had more than 3 or 4 in our hospital at any one time. And if you've been in the hospital, we've been able to take that 10-bed unit that we have, and that is entirely COVID. So anybody in our hospital is isolated away from any OB, any normal surgery, any normal med surg patients. So we have that ability in the hospital. But does that answer your question on the transfer?
Yeah, thank you. And also,
Hey,
go ahead. Go ahead, Dick. It's all right. Go ahead.
Hey, Lee. With
Yeah.
all due respect, I guess I'm not as confident that we're ready to open based on what I believe is anecdotal data. We're not data at all. I've heard from a lot of citizens with the extreme frustration that they've displayed, what they viewed to be severe symptoms. However, they may not have been at a high risk. They lived in confined quarters. They lived with family members, whatever. It's not easy for them to go isolate. And they've been sent away without a test and told to isolate, and you'll get better. And if you don't, then come back. And I don't think it's the caregivers that are making those decisions. I think it's the Centura. I don't think it's you either. I think it's the Centura system, the big machine. It's been really frustrating as a community. So moving forward, because I agree with Gary, so we're starting testing tomorrow, level 3 tomorrow. Somebody can get tested level, that a patient category 3, with just mild symptoms, your words, will get a test tomorrow between 9 and 2.
You, even going back to last week with our partnership with the county and Stadium Medical, if you called a clinic and met any symptoms of a tier 3, you're able to get tested. So it's not just tomorrow. Even going back to last week, and I've verified that with our own physicians, where if you call, and so even if you're a young 40-year-old male and you have symptoms of COVID, that doctor is going to fill out the paperwork, goes to public health, they dispatch Stadium to your house, and you're tested. That's been going on now, going back, I even believe 2 weeks ago that was the case. The comment though, the guidelines of us not testing everybody, that is really coming following state CDPHE guidelines. That's not a Centura mandate. That's just the tier level set by our state health department.
How is vagal testing so many then, if that's what the states say? I'm really confused, and I apologize, but I'm just reacting to the extreme frustration I've heard from our citizens around this. I heard somebody 2 days ago that tried to get tested, and yes, they were referred to Stadium Medical, but to my knowledge, they haven't been tested yet. It's been 3 days. So, what I've been told is that Stadium medical is only doing 4 or 5 tests a day because they're driving all over the county. So I'm just hearing so much, it's much of it firsthand from our citizens, information that I guess I have to share that with you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the feedback because, I really do. Stadium is able, they're able to test anywhere from 16 to 20 a day. And again, that criteria down to tier 3, that switch just flipped within the past couple weeks because again, public health didn't have the test. We don't have this limited amount of testing. And I've heard from patients as well. I'm with you, Dick. I mean, I've heard those comments from patients as well. I've heard that comment from our own physicians when you have even like as critical as it is, you have a 50-year-old female that needs to be tested. Well, that's tier 3. That's not tier 2. So as stringent as those guidelines are, they've helped us out along the way. And I think going forward now, to get to Gary's point, is what are we doing going forward? We're now in a position to really look at anybody with symptoms going forward. And so I'm not saying I haven't heard those things because everything you said I've also heard. And I can tell you, Stadium's been doing a really good job of testing to the best of their ability. We train those Stadium people. We fit them for their PPE. We train them on how to test. And if I would just say to anybody you hear from that isn't getting a test that they feel they need it and they're meeting that criteria, you can call any of our CHPG offices. I would even take the name of that person to do what I could to make sure that they're not slipping through the cracks. It is, and I'll be the first to tell you, it's not a perfect system. It really isn't, and we're doing the best with what we have. And I think going forward, like I said, we're going to have a good process in place that meets the needs of the community, and it's really going to be, I think, convenient as possible for our patients as well too.
But this whole thing strikes me as being reactive and really not proactive. I mean, we've got to get beyond the stage 3 testing. That's great that we're getting there, but it's sort of like we're taking baby steps because we don't want to offend the state or something, and therefore we're following their prescriptions. Hell, we need to be moving beyond just stage 3 if we're going to responsibly start opening this economy. And we're just not getting beyond this conversation of stage 3. I'll tell you right now, my view. Centura is going to bury this economy. It's going to make it very hard for the businesses here in Breckenridge. I don't think you guys are doing enough, and I really think it's going to hurt your fundraising ability going forward, because I think the performance of Centura today within Summit County has been subpar. And that's the last I'm going to say. I know others have comments to make.
Hey, Lee, I do. What else can Centura do to help be a good partner in this? We need a partner right now, and I'm wondering what you guys feel you can do in addition to opening up one testing center. What else can you do to be a great community partner?
I think right now what I'm hearing from everybody, what I'm hearing from public health, what I'm hearing from the county is this mass testing. And I really do get Gary's point. Beyond a tier 3 level of testing means you're going to want to test people that don't even have symptoms. You're going to test people that I want to test for the heck of it. There's no clinical reason for it. There's no medical reason for it. It's an extreme waste of people's time, resources, PPE, because I just want people to understand the testing process. It's not as if you're coming in for a rapid flu. You're having nurses put on the most stringent protective equipment, making sure they are safe going into a room and doing these one at a time. So it is a very supply intensive and time intensive process when you're coming indoors. We're trying to do those to be a good partner with CCOM to open that up. And I just say CCOM as a location. If more tests become available, whether it's if more tests become available in whatever way we can get our hands on them, and we can more widely open the floodgates to do what Gary is saying. Anybody who raises their hand and wants the test, we're going to do that. I think to be a better partner, the other thing that we also want to do is our physicians in Denver are really studying right now the sensitivity around the antibody testing. That will also be a big game changer, so that then we have people in Summit County, like many of us in Summit County, we've probably already been exposed to it. We may have had mild symptoms and continued along the way, but to be able to have that antibody testing, to be able to test you, Dennis, of what, have you had it? You have the antibodies, you're good to go. You don't have to mask. You don't have to do those things. So I think what we're trying to do to be a good partner is really work with the county as we have, work with public health as we have been doing from the beginning, taking care of our first responders as we have, and now this light switch is flipped to we're trying to secure, in being a good partner, as many tests as we can get our hands on. And then ultimately, when the antibody tests prove to be accurate enough, then we get our hands on those too, so we can start testing community members at need. And that's a rapid test. That's a much easier test to administer going forward. I guess to be a better partner, I would like to know what more, a suggestion of what should we be doing going forward outside of the testing piece, because we've really been doing as much as we can with the resources that we have to get us to this point. And now it's going forward. What do we need to be doing? And I'm all ears, and our system is responsive to that. And so I understand there's sentiment towards Centura through all this, but I can tell you we've been doing everything we possibly can with the resources we have. And that's not for a Centura's lack of trying. There's numerous hospitals and communities around the country and around Colorado that if you were to approach them and say, we want widespread testing, they're also not able to do it. We just happen to be next to a that has gotten their hands on thousands of tests. And I wish I was in that situation, but we're not.
Lee,
Hey,
First
Lee,
of all,
one more comment.
Whoa. Aaron, you go, then Kelly, then Dick.
Yeah, go ahead.
For starters, I completely agree with Gary, but I wonder if there's some middle ground where we could widen the net and test people who have come into contact with people who have had COVID, and do some tracing techniques where it's not just willy-nilly, but it's, it's thoughtful about it.
That's a really good point, Aaron. And I think that's where public health and the tracing that they have to do comes into play, because honestly, if you look at anybody, I'm just going to use myself as an example. I probably honestly feel like I've had it already going back into January, but if everybody who I come in contact with is going to raise their hand and need a test, you're really, at the end of the day, you're talking all 31,000 people in Summit County. That's really what it comes down to. To give everybody the comfort of, has everybody been tested, or anybody who's come in contact with somebody who's been either positive or been exposed, you're really talking about an unbelievable amount of tests that nobody right now has their hands on.
Well, it shouldn't be too many, especially if people are practicing social distancing, right? I mean, I don't see it that way. I guess I don't see it as it would be the whole. Well,
I'll share
getting there eventually.
No, I'll share a perfect example of how of just anybody who's been in contact. 2 weeks ago, we had 7 people come into our ER, all positive, coming from Park County, all working in Breckenridge for the past, I guess, 3 or 4 weeks. Every single one of them tested positive. Do you know how many people those folks in a matter of 3 weeks before they hit our ED probably came in contact with, that those people probably don't even know? So there's just, the tracing of it becomes an unbelievable process. And that, I'm not in the business of tracing, but it just exponentially gets absolutely crazy when you start thinking of who's come in contact with who, and then who have they come in contact with. I'm with you. If I could wave a magic wand, believe me, we would just go door to door or have everybody in Summit County be testing, but those options are just not there.
How many tests are you
Hey,
holding
Jeffrey,
right
hang
now?
on a sec.
I'm sorry.
Jeffrey, hang on. It's Kelly's turn.
Oh,
Yeah, thanks, Lee. So I'm just, I guess I'm still a bit curious on why you think tomorrow things are going to go, like, things are going to be so much different than they are today. It feels like maybe that seems a little bit like in a perfect world, you know, they'll be so much better than today.
You mean testing, Kelly? Or
Well, it seems like, I mean, so you said that as of tomorrow, we're going to have the ability to test these people, but actually we already had this last week. So I guess I'm just a little bit confused as to why, what's starting tomorrow that's going to make things, you know, go so much faster, and how are we going to be testing people and be more, hopefully a little bit more proactive?
yeah, no, that's a good question, Kelly. So again, to use tier 3 as an example, anybody with symptoms going back 2 weeks ago, it is still a pretty inefficient process, as you can imagine. And I think it was Dick who said maybe only 4 or 5 people are being able to be tested with Stadium Medical, because that's an ambulance going house to house testing patient, first responder, healthcare worker. What changes tomorrow is we have the ability to do it at one location in a more efficient manner. So if Stadium's going to be able to do 16 in a day reasonably, and all of a sudden we have a site that we're able to do just say 30 at in a day, because we can do these while person's in their car. You don't have to actually get out of your vehicle and come into the clinic or come into CCOM or anything like that. So it's going to be an efficient process where you're going to be able to pull up. Our folks come out and swab you. If you have something more that we need to look at, we're going to do that. But for the most part, it's going to be a much more efficient way where if all of a sudden, now that we are at this level of testing and we have the tests available, if the floodgates open and we know we have to expand hours, and now our hours tomorrow, which really we've had pretty consistent hours, but Stadium is doing it throughout the day. But if we all of a sudden get to tomorrow and our hours of people who are symptomatic can't fit into the time slots we have the staff to expand that to an 8 to 5. If we need to do an 8 to 5 on a Saturday and Sunday to accommodate all the testing needs, we're going to be able to do that. So I think having it at a location makes it way easier, way more efficient. People are driving up, which is how a lot of the places are doing it. And it's how, honestly, Community Care Clinic is doing it in the back of the MOB is those patients don't have to get out of a vehicle. It really does save on, then you don't have to worry about cleaning a room. You don't have to worry about all that. You're just doing a sample because it's a swab in your mouth or in your nose, and you're done. So it's a way more efficient process than an ambulance driving to your house, walking to your door and testing you that way. So that's why I'm saying it's going to be a better, more efficient process for our patients in the community to do it that way.
And how many tests do you expect to go through a day?
We don't know at this point. You know, Stadium has been keeping up with the demand that they've had, which is anywhere between 16 and 20 a day, is what I hear. I don't monitor the Stadium numbers, but I would probably say easily over these next couple of weeks, you know, what I'm hearing from our CHPG physicians is they're seeing probably 2 or 3, they're seeing 2 or 3 people a day that have symptoms that they are referring to Stadium. So I would probably say what's actually needed at this point, I would anticipate somewhere between 20 and 30 a day from that CCOM location. If we find that we need more, we're going to expand hours to meet that need.
And so are you expecting 16 to 20 at Stadium and then also 20 to 30 at this single point?
Yeah, I would probably say some of that Stadium is going to shift to this single point, because the game plan is really, we're going to continue using Stadium as well, but Stadium also who our Centura CHPG physicians use. So hopefully we're going to be able to do more, like you, I think that's what you said, Kelly. So we're going to continue using Stadium, and then we'll also have a site to test more folks as well too.
Okay. And then have you seen in the hospital, like hospitalizations, are those numbers right now staying the same, going down? What's the trend of like serious cases that you guys are hospitalizing?
Yeah, that's kind of what I alluded to earlier as the benchmark that we, kind of use without all the testing availability. But we are seeing next to nothing in the hospital. The most we've ever seen at one time positive in the hospital that needed an admission was 4. We had 4 people. And then our folks.
When was that? Do you know what week that was?
That was probably a couple weeks ago, I think, when we had 4 that were positive in the hospital. And so that's the highest we've ever had at any one time. I can tell you right now today, we don't have any vents in use. We have 1 positive sitting in a bed. And so really it's hovered around this 0 to 1 to 2 pretty much, almost pretty much from the beginning.
Hey,
So
Lee,
we can't really say that then there's a downward trend or anything.
No, and that's, yeah, you're right. You can't really say there's a downward trend, which I know is what's being looked for, but we've never had a spike to come down from. But anybody who's met admission criteria, they're being put in a bed. So if you're sick enough, we're not turning people away from the ED. You're getting put in a bed and monitored, and we've never seen a surge of folks. And I would just, my interpretation of that as well is we are blessed to live in a very healthy county where people are going to probably be symptomatic and they may never ever seek out help. And it's going to take a lot to knock somebody out to come to the hospital and need to be admitted.
Well, I mean, I'd make an observation. A lot of people just won't go to the hospital because it's too expensive. So, I mean, and I don't know how much expensive a test is, but, if a person doesn't have insurance, they'd have to be on death's door. And, on my way of thinking, if they're not working, they're just going to ride it out. So, that's just a quick observation. Also, yeah. I want to, before I let you go, where is CCOM exactly? I think it's at the old hospital by Walmart, right? But yeah. Another thing, I'm going to give you a scenario, and you tell me. Okay, so someone, a working class person, kind of comes to the conclusion that they've been hanging with someone that has tested positive. They've been hanging in close contact with someone that has tested positive, and they're asymptomatic. They don't have any symptoms, but they want to find out if they can get on with their life. What is the scenario for them? What number would they call? What is the mechanism for them to get tested? Is it possible for them to get tested? Because here's the deal: if everyone you come into contact with just kind of hangs out in their house for 2 weeks, it's going to take a long time to get the economy back. But if someone has if we have the wherewithal, Centura, Vail Health has the wherewithal to kind of alleviate someone's fears in that they don't have it, and then they can still live a healthy lifestyle, but not have that hanging over their head. So first of all, what's the number to call if you want to talk to somebody to get tested? Do you have to go see a doctor, or can you do it online before you apply for a test? And where is that CCOM location?
So the first part, that you're absolutely right. CCOM is going to be in that Vista building, which is right there next to the middle school, the blue roof building. Okay. The number that you are going to call that's the number I'm just finalizing this evening, because it's going to be one CHPG number. So you're going to call the scheduling at our physician office. So this is what I'm working on. I want to get one number for our community. I don't have that ready right now, but I want to have one number for our community to call to do exactly what you're saying. The physicians, and they're really already doing that, I'll use an example where I talked to Colby Jolly last week, who is one of our primary care physicians in Silverthorne, where a gentleman came in. He had a roommate who was positive a while ago. We don't have to answer many more questions after that. He definitely was asymptomatic like you're talking about, but he was with enough folks that we said, you know what, I got to test this guy. This is for his own peace of mind as a patient, and also so that he can get on back to working, which is what we all want people to do. So that's why we're making it so it's one number for the community, so that a physician can actually ask all of those questions of who have you been in contact with, where have you been, where do you work, and because that may also then help us lead to, yeah, you probably should tell your roommates to come on in and get tested as well too. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, and how are you going to release that number? How can we get that
So-
number to the public?
So we have a press release ready to go. We have the messaging that's going to be on our social media. We have the directions where it's going to direct people to our Summit website that's going to give you all of that information, where already there's a ton of COVID information, but we have that drafted. We're just waiting on the final one phone number because I want to make it easy. I don't want people hitting roadblocks in the process. I want it to be an easy number that can be readily shared and people are going to get what they need. So I don't have that right now, but we're going to be able to hopefully release that tomorrow when we have that nailed down.
And I'll just say one thing, Morley. It seems like it must feel like you've gone to a gang fight without your gang. You know, you're just the person we have in front of you. We all know, everyone here knows that you are operating under the constraints that people, either the state or the people above you on the food chain, put you under. I appreciate you being here, and I hope you don't. I hope you don't let Gary hurt your feelings.
No, no, honestly, you guys, I appreciate it. Yeah, it's been crazy times. I wish there was a playbook to follow for it. I know how frustrating it is for all of our government folks in the positions you're in, our public health, our county, and everybody. I know I'm taking the same kind of heat you guys are being asked to open this place up. I don't take any offense to it at all. I wish I had more tests available to do what we need to do. And I know we don't want to look backwards, but I'll tell you what, when we first had positive guys 6 weeks ago, I would have never have thought we'd be sitting here today in as good a shape as we are in as a county. I can tell you how scared our own folks internally were when that guy hit our doors, and the people we started to see, and to see our front caregivers even being worried about, holy cow, what's going to happen? What's going to go on? I can tell you, I feel very fortunate to be in the position we're in, and I want to move as fast forward as we can in this process, and that's what I'm working hard to do.
Any
Hey,
other
Lee.
questions from council? Yeah, Dick, go ahead.
Lee, just to give you some feedback, I received a text during this from one of your medical professionals in your system, indicating that they are not seeing ample PPEs. They're being asked to reuse masks, and they do not have ample PPEs. So that's a grave concern to me.
You know, depending on where that person's working at, we're recycling PPE. We're using the right type of PAPRs and protective equipment. I would say to anybody, if they feel they're in an unsafe position or don't have it, we're not in that situation. I'm sorry that person feels that way, but we're sitting really well with our supplies. Is our supplies, I'm not going to tell you we have the exact type of supply that we would typically use, because we have people on the floor using surgical gowns that they wouldn't typically be using. We have people on the front lines wearing masks that may not come from internal Centura, but we've been fortunate enough to have our community donate masks to us. So is it going to be the exact type of stuff you're used to using? No, but our people are safe. And the reason I can share with you I know that is throughout this whole 6 weeks, we've only had one of our associates test positive. So of all of the people we've come in contact and that we've dealt with in unbelievable circumstances, we've had one person test positive at Summit.
That's great to hear.
Other council questions? No, I have two final things, Lee. Number one, what's the price of testing?
I don't have that in front of me. I can get that for you though. It's not an expensive test. You know, and for anybody who is uninsured or doesn't have insurance, those are done free. So nobody, if you have the If you are symptomatic and you need a test and you're uninsured, we're going to do that. Even to the point of admission, even to the point of sending you home on oxygen. So I can get that for you, Mayor. I don't have that in front of me.
Okay. Lee, when you get that information from the phone number to that information, please get it to us so we can put it on our website for the town. Final question from me, and non-COVID related, but very stressful time now. One of our real big concerns as a council is mental health. What are you guys going to be doing to step up your mental health offerings? We know that Vail Valley Health has done some stuff. Is Centura heading in that direction also?
Yeah, our plan and what we were planning on before all this, and I would say, we're in the middle of our strategic planning process. Mental health is one of the things at the top of our list. We are working to incorporate mental and behavioral health into all of our primary care clinics. So it's not just sitting as an isolated type of a service, but we're trying to provide a more holistic approach to mental health for everybody in our community. Those are very hard to come by, but we do have a few of those right now. And we really want to expand that, because I think that I can assure you that is very close to everybody's heart as far as all of our family practice folks, especially when you have some of the just terrible situations that do happen. We see those in the hospital. We're right there on the front line of that. And that is going to be one of our objectives moving forward, of just trying to obtain as many of those behavioral health specialists, putting them in our clinic and making sure we have the access to that for everybody. Working with, when, we've been asked about the ATU, we've been asked about detox. Those are things that we've never really considered because we're not experts at that, but that's something that I think we're looking down the hill to some of our partners within Centura. Maybe that is something that we have to take over. I know we've talked about that with the county, but that is something that our clinics, Frisco here, we do have her intertwined within our primary care right now, our behavioral health person. And so it's just got to be a part of everyday practice. It can't just stand alone in mental health. I have a dad who's bipolar. I know how it works. So it's a big deal. It's a big deal.
All right. Well, Lee, thanks for joining us tonight. I know this was we could probably keep you here another 4 or 5 hours asking questions. We got a ton of questions online that Shannon will probably end up forwarding some to you so we can
Please
get
do.
back to people. But thanks for being here. We appreciate it.
No, anytime. Forward me those questions. And if you need me back, please reach out.
All right. Thanks a lot, Lee.
You bet.
Thank you,
Thank
Lee.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Thank you.
All right, gang. We have a couple other things to do before we start with those. However, let me give you a quick update on, since we're sort of going in this way, quick update on the session that Rick and I were a part of this afternoon with Summit County as far as the reopening and the recovery. With some things that are still going on for public health to get some approval from the Board of Health, which governs, the reopening, everything. It looks like we're just going to be following what the governor spoke about in the press conference last night, the Safer at Home, with dates on the 27th for a start to reopen, and then the 4th of May with some additional reopening with restaurants and bars potentially by the middle of May. So that's at least the preliminary information we've gotten from public health so far. Are there enough tests and stuff for us to be doing this? We're looking at Summit County Public Health to give us the proper answers. We're really not looking to Centura for answers. We're looking to Summit County Public Health. They think that the governor's on the right path, so we'll just have to wait and see as far as that goes. It seems, sort of to many of Gary's comments, they seem to feel that that's where we're heading. So that's the information we have right now. It was a call with 60 people, so it was more of a lecture series than a question and answer. But we are trying to get those answers for everybody. So,
Eric, where are timing on lodging? Is that still?
it looks like that's still end of May. is what it is. Look, one of my major concerns, and I typed this question in, one of my major concerns is not, you know, if we were in a true bubble up here and it was just the locals, I have no problem reopening the county. I think we're in a good place right now. My main problem is the minute the governor says safer at home is okay, we're going to get a crush of people to come from Denver for a day. It's going to be day visitor central up here because people have been cooped up and they just want to get in their car and go somewhere. There's no answer to that piece. You could test everybody in this county. It would be immaterial to what potentially drives up here from the Front Range. That's my major concern with where we're going. I mean, you can't institute roadblocks. You can't do any of this stuff. We're going to partially open up some retail to curbside. I can't remember all the lingo. I took a bunch of notes with all these other notes I have. Anyway, so that's sort of where this is starting to head. I'd be totally satisfied if we knew this was going to be a normal May for Breckenridge and we would be slow, but I'm afraid that with the lockdown everywhere in the state, we're going to see some higher volumes of people just driving through. And you know what, there's nothing really to do except come to our trailheads. And you know, that's, and go skiing on a ski area that you're not allowed to be on anyway. So there's some more difficult discussions that we're going to have as this thing goes forward about how we're going to control a potential influx that the governor even is saying should not occur, but I'm pretty sure it's going to occur. So everybody just start thinking about those things. Yeah, go ahead, Aaron. I'm sorry.
Even just, I mean, the trails aren't great right now. I mean, fortunately, we're in the spring stuff. So that's okay. But as soon as we start opening restaurants, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't, I'm just saying that once we do, we might as well tell second homeowners, come on in, you know, it's tough.
Well, I think we're going to get good information. I think we're going to get good information from some of these other states that are relaxing their restrictions. And if we see, and I'm sure public health will take this in consideration, they see a huge spike, they might rethink their time schedule.
And I think we should watch Vail too. I mean, fortunately, if they're opening sooner, although I think people will be driving through Summit County to get there, but if they open sooner, I think we should keep an eye on them as well.
Yeah. Well, they're talking about, Thursday. The governor's going there Thursday. I mean, if anything says, hey, get in your car and drive to the mountains, it's the governor going to Vail on Thursday. So
did he give you any
I just was saying, you're right, Eric. I totally agree with you. Summit County is special, and I would be reluctant to just blindly do what the governor says to do. I think we need to do what's right with data. Hopefully that will be starting to get tomorrow. I don't know.
Well, yeah, and hopefully so Amy Wineland, the public health official, is going to go to the public health board with her recommendations for what we need to do. I just remembered where I wrote all those down.
I have some of those there.
Include retail curbside, real estate showings, which I think is a good idea. Childcare opening, opening electives for medical and dental. Restaurants and bars will remain closed. They're still discussing this whole personal services thing with haircuts, nail salons, et cetera, et cetera. So we don't really have an answer on that. Offices potentially opening at 50% capacity. Auto sales, which we don't have in Breck, so, other than Malinchek's place, and he's a one-man operation. They're talking about some mainline transportation, limited trailhead still, second homeowners if necessary. So this is not, hey, let's go to the mountains. This is supposed to be if you have something to work on at your house. Ski areas remain closed. So we're just going to wait for the governor's guidance and then see what happens. And we can all just assume right now, if they're only testing 50 people a day, you can't test 30,000 people at 50 people a day. Not going to happen. So we're going to have to live under the strictures that are being set for us by things that we cannot control. We can bitch all day at Centura. We can still send the letter because I think Lee's boss needs to know what we're thinking. but I don't know that it's going to change anything. So
What did he say about haircuts?
you need one, is what he said.
Okay, okay, perfect.
Jeffrey, you need to get a haircut like me.
I might have to. Ellie's been keeping social distancing as is, so what do I have to lose?
Yeah, I just think we just have to keep in mind that there's just not one sort of set of regulations or rules that are going to work for everybody statewide. I mean, just like anything else, it's going to have to really be tailored. And so our county public health really is going to have to work with, I think, all the communities within Summit County to say, okay, really what's going to work best for us?
Yep.
And not just follow a state mandate that they're doing down in Timbuktu, Colorado.
And Gary, we're going to have to do the same, because in the end,
Yes.
we can be stricter than the county guidance. And
Exactly.
we're also going to have to be, as much as I hate to even think this way, we're going to need to be prepared to pull the plug if this thing just ramps out of control. If all of a sudden in the middle of July, we're sort of back to 75% and, people start getting sick, we're going to have the backbone to do something about it like we did the first time around. So
Exactly.
it's going to have to be mentally prepared to be in this constant battle for a while now.
If we don't have the data from testing, if we don't feel comfortable in that, then we'll need to have the information from Centura as far as how many beds are full.
Right.
And that's and even in Denver, I mean, if people need to go to Denver, then we're also reliant on what's available for people to go to Denver too. I don't want us to get stuck where altitude becomes a problem as well.
Right. I'm with you, Aaron. Dick, go ahead.
No, I agree. We've got to have the testing. It's the bottom line. So I hope it's coming.
How's everybody feel about sending that letter? Show of hands. Gary, yeah, no?
It can't, I don't think it's going to help, but it certainly can't hurt.
I don't think it'll help either, but I think we should send it just so Lee's boss understands how we're feeling about this stuff.
Yeah, because, I agree with Jeffrey. It was great that Lee came and spoke. But like so many times when you work for a large organization and you're really only focused, even though you are the senior guy locally, you're following the music that's coming from home office, and there's really not much you can do about it. So I'm sure he's doing everything he possibly can that he feels is the right thing to do, because he does feel community, he does feel locally. But unfortunately, with these big organizations, you just get trapped. I'm just wondering how much his board is being helpful, and not just having him be the messenger, but I think maybe the St. Anthony's board needs to get, I don't know if they haven't or they have, but if they haven't, perhaps they need to get more involved and make some noise down the hill.
Oddly enough, I got a email from Chris Jarneau today, ex-Vail, Chris Jarneau, who helped us with the agreement on the construction. He is on the Vail Valley board, the health board, and he emailed Rick and I today to offer whatever we needed for help. So, that was completely unprovoked. So
if I were Centura, I'd be pretty embarrassed.
Yeah.
That the Vail medical system is coming over here to Summit County to help bail us out. It's sort of like the North Koreans sending masks to the U.S., Yeah. Kind of crazy.
Well, I think it's just really important that we get to a place where, like, Centura maybe feels more like part of the team to getting us reopened again. It feels like I don't know if they're scrambling or if they're behind the 8 ball, but instead of them being like, yeah, we're hoping that you'll tell us how you want us to be involved. I really was looking to them to say, we're a group of doctors. This is when we should feel comfortable. This is what we should do to get there. It's a little disappointing that we can't rely on them that way, but maybe there's a way to get them involved so that they feel like they can give us more of that information and play ball.
I would suggest that the doctors are living under the edicts of the corporation. I mean, I think if it's up to the doctors, things might be a little bit different, but it's up to the board of directors. And that's, well, like Gary said, that's always how it is in business. But I think the doctors and the healthcare people are doing what they can.
Well, and we're a small cog in this chain. I mean,
Yeah.
in this machine. You know, don't forget, when we were going through this whole thing with the Peak Alliance, we saw what the difference was between the way they treated us in Summit and the way they treat the other parts of their hospital chain down in Denver. It's just different. They don't,
Yeah.
they don't view us the same way as they view some of their other hospitals, and I appreciate Lee showing up today and, taking one for the team. I really do. I think,
Yeah.
he answered what he could, but, I still feel like we are operating with 1.5 eyes closed right now. And, I don't know how to get past that. And every discussion I have had with our congressmen, our senators, that some of these things just get lost because everybody's so buried right now trying to fight their way through some of these problems that, I feel like I'm banging my head against the wall sometimes. So anyway, we have some other stuff to take on. This obviously will be ongoing. We have some discussion items starting with the 2020 Tarn Dam repair update. Rick? Hi, James.
Hey, hi everyone. Good evening, everyone. Yeah, on the agenda is the 2020 Tarn Dam repair update. I thought it was necessary to let the council know that it is the recommendation of Public Works at this time to postpone the project until next year. Some of the discussion that has taken place that has kind of generated this recommendation has been ongoing for the last several weeks. Right, the biggest piece that really contributed to this decision and recommendation is that the time that the proposals were due was March 26th. And that was right kind of in the, when this whole COVID thing was starting to spool up pretty great. And there was some concern within the design team and us internally in terms of the number of proposals that we were going to receive, and also some of the restrictions and limitations of really what it was going to be like for contractors to perform work. So we did communicate that right away with the state Homeland Security and Emergency Management team that we've been dealing very closely with. They're the agency that is going to be administering the $10 million through FEMA. And obviously that was our biggest concern, and one of the questions that we wanted to just kind of move to the top of the questions is, would there be any risk involved with the $10 million if this project was to be postponed by a year? And through those discussions with both the state and FEMA, while they haven't given us the any kind of official letter that would be the case, they have assured us that we would have time to extend the project on the back end of the project. Even when we were starting to have this discussion about the project, if council recalls, we were going to be doing work in 2022. The grant, the timing on the grant, it's a 3-year grant, and then the timing is running on that right now. So it actually runs out in 2022. But FEMA said that they would provide us an extension on that, depending where we're at with the project. Right now, the goal would be to go out to bid again here mid-June and secure a contract by the middle of August to the end of August. That way we would have a contractor on board and we'd be able to work with that contractor. And some of the benefits to that would be is we do believe there'd be more time for the contractors to review the construction documents. Again, one of the concerns that we were hearing even late in the proposal period was there was only going to be a few contractors that were actually going to bid on the project. We had really grave concern that the pricing was going to be all over the place, again, due to COVID. So I think there's benefit in postponing based on we'll be able to work with the contractor to get a harder bid. I know some of the questions that you all may have are, what are the risks of postponing. While there are risks that still exist, certainly, we have been working with the State Dam Safety Branch and the Chief Engineer, Bill McCormick, and he shares in the same concerns that we had last year. However, if you recall, we did do some mitigation efforts to the dam. We performed some work to the spillway. We poured out a number of sections of the RCC spillway, and we grouted underneath that spillway. So we feel like we've done some of those efforts to better prepare for this year's runoff. Probably the one thing that's an obvious with risk is we're waiting one more season. So while we did believe we were going to start the work this year, now we're going to have to wait again through next year. There are some things that we can do to continue to prepare ourselves to be able to hit the ground running in May. Again, the way that this contract was set up, we were hoping to have a contractor mobilized by the beginning of May and be performing work already by the second week in May. As we're approaching that date right now, that we know that that's not possible. We just did collectively make a team decision last week, and that's why Rick and Shannon thought it was important that we bring this to council and make this recommendation. And we also looked at parts of the project that we could parse out of the project and see if there was any benefit to doing some of the work this year. But after looking at it pretty exhaustively, we determined that there wasn't really any schedule or dollar savings to do that. So again, the delay will, at this point, seems to be the best way to go. The only thing that I would add to that, before I just ask for any questions, is that, again, while the risks are much like they were last year, the one benefit that we have this year is we do know that the spring runoff isn't pacing like it was last year. That is one thing that we can at least be a little bit more comfortable in. The other piece is we will be updating the emergency action plan just as we did last year, and we'll be having a tabletop exercise with all the stakeholders and all the local folks and just reviewing that plan. That again, the emergency action plan is really the first kind of line that we go to depending on how the runoff starts to take place. With that, I'll just open it up for any questions.
Thanks, James. All right, questions, game?
James, the fact that we've had not a mild winter, but a reasonable winter, and the runoff will be less than it was last year. Does every year runoff kind of degrade the condition of the dam? Like, in other words, is it the fact that it's not going to be a crazy runoff, will that damage the dam less than, say, it was damaged last year with the pretty aggressive runoff?
That's a very good question, Jeffrey. One area that I would add as a risk area is something that we're monitoring with our design engineer. Obviously, we have piezometers. You have to know what's going on with water infiltration through the dam and certainly under the spillway themselves. But the other area that we're looking at closely is just the degradation of the RCC spillway. And that's where all the water is being channeled now after it comes over the top of the dam. And even the pretty aggressive runoff, to use your words, Jeffrey, last year, there was a little bit of the stress that we saw on that RCC surface. So that'll be something that we're going to look at before the runoff starts this year. And then certainly after the runoff, we'll look at that again and see if there's been a loss of any of that RCC surface. I guess I would say if it's deemed that there is a significant loss of that surface, there might be a need to do a little bit of repair work between after this year's runoff and before next year's runoff. But excellent question.
Thanks, James. Other questions?
Yeah, James, I'm just kind of curious. You mentioned that one of the reasons for potentially delaying the project was because we weren't going to get, or we weren't getting a lot of, subcontractor, bids.
Mm-hmm.
But interestingly, on the parking garage, as Hyder reported out, to the town, we got a lot of bids from subcontractors for the parking structure. So I guess I was thinking, why wouldn't we have gotten a lot of bids or sufficient bids for a project like this?
That's a good question, Gary. I think the thing that has contributed to kind of what we were believing and what we were hearing is we were getting a lot of requests for information right up through the process, like the process allows for the RFP process, that is. And we were really getting down to just 2 companies that were really interested. That's not to say that there wouldn't have been a few others, but we had a pretty good reason to believe there was, again, we were already kind of in the COVID situation where we were looking at electronic submittals for the proposal. And so there was only one company that was really requesting that information to submit a proposal. Knowing that we were also following FEMA guidelines and processes for those proposals, there was also the chance that had we only received 2 or 3 proposals, those bids could have been all over the place. And FEMA may have indicated that they weren't comfortable with the number of bids that we did receive. The other thing that was not working in our favor, so to speak, was the fact that this project required a lot of pretty significant years of experience, dam related specifically. We had a lot of contractors that came to the pre-bid meeting. In fact, we had about 20 contractors, but the kind of the parameters on being able to bid was if you had very specific dam experience. Those were the only ones that we were really entertaining. So it's a little bit unlike some of the other construction world, and that was really, in the end, we ended up, I think we changed the years of experience from 12 years of experience down to 10, and even working with the chief dam engineer, that came with a little discussion to even reduce it down to 10. So I think that kicked out a number of people as well.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Anyone else? All right, is everybody okay with delay?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll go with this. Yeah.
All right. Okay,
Thanks,
James.
everyone.
Thank you, James.
Thank you.
Okay, we got a parking structure GMP update, Rick.
So we're going to bring Shannon Smith into the picture here. There she is.
Shannon.
She put a memo in the packet for those people that are listening to the presentation. You'll have a note, but you can access that memo now, via the website. So, Shannon, why don't you kick it off?
So as reported in the memo that I think everybody had a chance to review, we received the GMP from Hyder, I think on last Thursday, and it came out really good. We saved about 8.5% off of the DD estimate that had previously been reported. And as we reached the CD level, we also reduced the owner's cost and the contingency by quite a bit to get that price down to $43 million as a recommended budget. That does come with a caveat that we are following the prior schedule. We would have been doing a notice to proceed with Hyder on the end of April and starting in May. Some of that has probably changed now given the circumstances. So that GMP could change depending on when we start the project.
And if in changing, you mean increase?
Yes. If we were to lose some subcontractors with a delay, we would have to go with the second in line for the subcontractor bid, and that typically is more expensive.
Oh.
Isn't it a buyer's market? I mean, is anyone else building huge structures like this with municipal monies?
There are people, yeah. So there are people that, construction has been allowed to continue throughout COVID. So yeah, there are people working. Are there people that are going to be spending money on large projects? I can't answer that. What we do expect is that we expect there will be some infrastructure stimulus money coming out. It's certainly not coming in level 4, which we're seeing right now, but even on our conversations that Eric and I were on with Congressman Magoosh, a question was asked about infrastructure stimulus, and it's being talked about. It's not a priority, but I would suspect that we'll see something this year, which means more people will seize that opportunity to go out and get projects done. So we're using this. The risk of it going up is going to be if, how much longer we delay the start. Do we get into some different winter conditions that may add some increase to the cost? While those may happen, those aren't going to be $1 million type numbers we're talking about. He had several, for the most part, there were multiple bids on different things like electricians and concrete and that. And obviously he went with the good source and a good bid. If we start, the longer we delay our ability to sign a notice to proceed, that we run a risk of a contractor dropping out because another job came up. But we were very clear, Shannon and I set Monday with Hyder Construction on a call, and I was very clear that we're not signing a notice to proceed now. We can't do that because we have to have a better sense of comfort about what our financing is going to look like. So the last conversation that you all had with this was, we're not sure how municipal bonds are going to sell due to this. Well, we're not going to bring that question in front of you. What we did tell Hyder to do was go back. First of all, tell us what we might be able to do right now that will help us down the road, save some time. Is there any money we could spend and do right now that wouldn't be money wasted? One of those items is, one of the first things they have to do when they start is the excavation, is the shoring of the ground, which involves, putting large steel beams embedded deep into the soil to help support whatever, right, Shannon?
It holds back the hole that you excavate.
Yeah.
So you build a wall.
So it doesn't collapse in on you.
Yeah.
So, you have to you need to order those beams and get them on order so that they're here ready to go. That's about $100,000 that we need to spend now. If we don't, if for some reason, we're not comfortable with funding and we don't move forward this summer, those beams, that doesn't go to waste. Those beams are still usable for next summer when we start it. So, that's one suggestion. I think that we need to go ahead and purchase those things. The other thing we've done is have him look at his schedule and how much longer we can put out and get, where we can get to a comfort level with the council. And so the plan is to come back to you on May 26th, your second meeting in May. At that time, you'll have an emergency ordinance, which we do every time, to adopt the funding package for this. That package that's adopted by you then goes out in the next couple of weeks after that for the issuance to the investors. But it has to be adopted by you before we can do that. Michael Lund, the underwriter with Stifel, who you've met, feels very comfortable that at that May 26th meeting, he can sit in front of you and give you a very clear picture of what the bond picture will look like for the town. And I think at that point is when you probably need to make a decision on a notice to proceed, because the bonds will be issued within a 2-week period by mid-June, but we will have a very clear picture of what that looks like and what rates should be looking like then. If we can let the contractor know by the end of May, that May 26th meeting, that we're willing to go with the notice to proceed, we should be able to hopefully secure all of our subs and meet all of our schedules that are in our lease agreement.
Hey, Shannon, what I can't remember. What was the number of the funding or the monies that would go to local contractors? Was it 15 million that we were guessing would go to local tradesmen?
That was the estimate earlier. It's slightly lower than that, Jeffrey, and I didn't have Hyder recalculate it, but it's pretty significant on that order of magnitude.
It's more than 10.
I would say yes.
I mean, I would say that I'd try to make it as much as possible as we're getting these people back on their feet. But I'm sure you know that.
Absolutely.
So right now, I'm not looking, obviously, it's premature to ask for a decision about moving forward. I think what we're doing is we're continuing to work with the bond attorney and the underwriter to get all of the paperwork in order so that the council can pass the ordinance and that we can be in a position that should everything look good for us at the end of May, we're ready to get all this paperwork done and get it out there. So that's the plan. The big thing was we wanted to give you an update. It's great news that we've seen a reduction in the cost. Now it's just a very tight window that we're working under from a timing perspective. If we're, to make this thing happen this summer. The one decision I would like to have is, we did appropriate, as you'll recall, $3 million, which gave us some early spending authority to continue to do design and other things that we're spending money on. So I think we need to go ahead and, spend another 100,000 to get these beams ordered if you're supportive of that.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I've got a couple. Shannon, have you talked to Hyder with regards to sourcing of materials and supply lines and such? Are they confident that we're not going to have any issues?
As far as the materials we'll need in the first year, there haven't been any issues that have come up. Our precaster would be the biggest one, and they are having no problems meeting the schedule. As we get things like the wooden siding and that sort of stuff year 2, who knows what the market's going to do, but I don't think there's anything that we feel is at risk at this point.
And do you feel like our incentives, the cost sharing incentives, are sufficient to motivate Hyder to really push? I suspect, maybe some of the bigger contracts will get other infrastructure stuff, but there'll be subs up there that'll be getting hungry because they will have had a lot of projects canceled. Or is that clause in the contract sufficient in your mind to enjoy some savings if they're to be had?
Yeah, 50-50 is a nice one that we typically do with contractors. I have done some 80-20 on smaller projects to really incentivize it, but 50-50 I think is very fair with Hyder, and it is motivating.
Okay. And then kind of last one, I don't know if this is Rick or Tim, are we comfortable with the lease? And I might encourage us to touch base with the ski area. But are we comfortable that we're covered in the lease, that if we pull the trigger this summer and then there's another outbreak next winter and it shuts down the job and it pushes us into a second winter of construction, that we're not going to get hit with? Because as I recall, there's some pretty severe penalties if we go into a second year of construction. Are you comfortable we're covered there, Tim?
Dick, there's an unforeseen circumstance, kind of a force majeure clause in the lease, and that would be what you would have to rely on. But given, if the choice is, do we try to start now or try to kick it a year, it's my recommendation, I think Rick would agree, that we try to get started now. I think that's in the best interest of the town.
Yeah. Is there any kind of little side agreement or an MOU or anything like that would be simple and not slow down the process? That I know it's hard to negotiate anything quickly with the ski area, but that we could possibly work out with the ski area to bring us a higher level of comfort that they're going to share in the risk?
I haven't had any discussions with the council for Vail. Rick, have you had any discussion from your end about that?
No, Dick and I talked about this. I think it's covered in the lease. I think we have a and I'm looking at the lease right now, and we have a term. We didn't use force majeure. We used excusable delay, and it defines those events that prevents or delays a party's performance or its obligations in the lease. So if you have another situation that shuts this thing down beyond our control based on executive orders of the governor or the it's by no fault of ours. So
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, Dick, that's about as good as we could do.
Okay, then I'm comfortable. I'm all for buying the shoring and whatever we need to do that wouldn't be wasted if we ended up kicking it down the road a year. But yeah, I agree with you, Rick and Shannon. We need to get that stuff procured, so to leave us in a good position to roll.
And it also demonstrates our interest in doing the project and going forward. If we have to delay it a year for whatever reason, whether it be, debt cost or coronavirus or, whatever. So I think it continues to demonstrate a good faith effort. So I say buy as much as you can, quite frankly. Hey, Shannon, for you, this is one of your line items. It's a small item. I'm going down into the weeds now, but I want you to feel comfortable that we do look at your memos.
I know you do, Gary.
One of your line items, utilities.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever I see Comcast or CenturyLink, I immediately think of Fiber 9600. What is CenturyLink doing for us that's unique, and therefore we need to go with them?
Sure. So we are running our town-owned fiber to the structure. We'll be running all of our security cameras and everything off of the fiber. CenturyLink provides phone lines, which is a code requirement for the elevators and the fire panel. We haven't found a way to use internet phones to meet that code requirement.
Oh, okay.
But Allo provides.
Yep.
Allo provides phone. Do they just not run line? Is that?
I think it's voice over IP or whatever that means, which is an internet phone.
I have regular phone service with Allo.
Do you?
Okay. You just picked up the lines that we have and use that. So.
Okay.
Yeah, let's just check if we can. If we can use ourselves, let's do it.
Absolutely. I'll check into that. And then also, I don't think I updated the council. We did get CDOT approval. Project.
Oh,
I apologize.
great.
I didn't include that.
The minor detail we left out.
Congratulations.
Nice work, man.
And what was their quid pro quo?
I don't know. They haven't asked for anything yet, but
Okay.
Hey, Eric, there's one, I apologize. There's one other thing I want to get a head nod on.
Yeah, please.
As we're finalizing the numbers that we're going to be financing, basically, if you look at the owner's costs and the construction costs were like 41.5, and then we have the 1.9 owner contingency, I'm recommending that we do not finance the owner contingency, that we set that aside and use it out of other funds if we need it at the time. It's still part of the budget, so we know it's there, but I don't want to finance it. So.
Okay. And just for everybody that's watching, so everybody understands, the money that will pay for this structure is not money that we could use to help with rent or food or anything like this. This is money that comes from lift ticket tax that it can be used for transit or for structure, and that's the deal. So if you think we should delay the structure because we should use that money for something, closer to home and to help house people, it's not where this money goes. So by the end of May, we will have a decision one way or the other. For me, it's going to be based mainly on the financing more than anything. We get a good finance rate, I say we go, but we'll wait and see what Stifel has to say. Anything else? All right. We have express bill pay.
So Brian's gonna do this very quick in a couple of minutes, and I want to let you all know that we have to be off of this call prior to 7 p.m. We
Okay.
pushed the planning commission meeting out. It was supposed to start at 6. We pushed it to 7. We cannot have two Zoom meetings under one account happening at the same time. So we're going to pull the pin at
All right.
5 to 7.
Make it quick, Brian.
Good luck with that.
I just want to update the group quickly. We have had an issue that started a couple of weeks ago with Express Bill Pay, which is our remote sales tax filing system, also our water billing system. Really, the main issue is with sales tax filing. It's been extremely slow or non-functional during business hours, and it's been slow during non-business hours. We met with Express Bill Pay last week on Monday, remotely, of course, and we talked with them about when a solution might be pending. They didn't really have much information for us, but though actually to update the group just about an hour and a half ago, we did get an email from them with some good news, bad news. They are going to pull the site down here starting in about 20 minutes for a couple of hours. And the hope is they're going to switch over to some hardware that might help the efficacy of the site going forward. We have updated our website with that information. So when we became aware of the slowdown and as we were approaching the deadline for March sales tax, which was due on April 20th, we did send an email blast out to our business license holders informing them that we would, at first we said we would delay the filing deadline till April 30th. It's since been extended to May 30th. Rick signed an order to that effect this afternoon to make it official. So we've sent that information out to our business license holders. We're obviously really frustrated and disappointed that with everything business owners have to worry about right now, that Express Bill Pay has started to slow down, but they do have increased volume for some pretty obvious reasons. So our notice did mention that we've extended the deadline. There will be no penalties or interest for people filing before May 30th. And we've also waived the paper billing fee. And in our message to our business license holders, we did include a link to where they can get the paper return to either, which they can actually fill out online and then kind of email in a more manual process, or just mail it in with a check. So we got on that situation as we started to realize it wasn't going to get better as we were approaching April 20th. And we did message it, and we just got their notice, like I said, about an hour and a half ago, that they are pulling the site down, switching over some hardware is what we think they're doing. And we're hopeful it'll be back up. But actually the weekend, it sped back up, relatively speaking, not back to normal operating condition. But as of right now, we have, we're a little bit behind where we were last year in terms of number of returns filed. But for right now, we have 1,553 returns filed. Last year at this time, we were at 2,032 returns filed. So we're still about a third behind of where we were last year. And again, we're interfacing with Express Bill Pay as best we can to try to get it remedied. And we hope we think the word has gotten out to all of our business license holders that they won't be held responsible for the delay.
All right. Thanks, Brian. Any questions or comments for Brian? Nope. All right. Thanks, man. Any other COVID-19 updates? I think we probably hit that one pretty hard.
Eric?
Yes.
I just want to add to the fact that we have this countywide effort going on. I want to, Eric and I spoke, and we are the town reps on this countywide effort, but I want to provide a little feedback to the county on potentially a process that something's got to bring that down. Can't have 75 people on a committee and get anything done. But we're starting this Friday a local Breckenridge only kind of recovery team that will be between the town and BTO, and Lucy and Shannon are going to co-chair that. We've identified a number of community representatives from, lodging, restaurant, retail, trying to hit bike shops, et cetera, different. We have a real estate person on there. And so we're reaching out. We're going to probably have our first meeting on Friday. We're really looking for this group to kind of provide feedback to us that we can take back, to the countywide group, and also to help us with communication and interpretation of rules, because that's one of the things we know as we start to kind of loosen it a little bit and allow a few things, it's what does that mean? What does that look like, et cetera. But we need this. We want a local group that we're going to work with also. I just wanted to give you all an update on where that's at.
With that group, Rick, will there be somebody from like a doctor or somebody from the healthcare community commenting or input as far, because we're all in quarantine again, so that we flatten the curve and all that. And I want to make sure that messaging transcends to the business community as well, so that there's a good balance of messaging,
I mean, we don't have that because was not the role that we're filling. That's we have to work in concert with the county, which is public health, and what they're doing. So we don't really plan to be on an island doing our own thing. And I mean, we're going to be sharing and communicating that same message that's coming out of public health. And so to have a healthcare professional that's saying one thing on our committee, if that doesn't line up with public health, that means nothing to us, because they're the ones that's steering the ship. So, we have to rely on that. This is more about liaisoning and communicating with, I think, with the direction that we're seeing from them. That's probably why we didn't bring a public health official on there. So,
any other questions for Rick on this? Anything else on the COVID?
I do have another. Could we? I know the last time I believe we got an update about the money with FERC was about a week ago or something like that, and we had that comment where it was taking a bit for people to get resources, and even I think from the update it was still another 2 weeks, and so I was wondering how that's going.
I think it's going better. I had a discussion. I got an email from Brianna Snow from FERC, and I think one of the things that they were running into was each individual asking, well, not each, but a lot of the individuals asking for rent had other issues that's really slowed down the process. There was some domestic violence issues. There was some multiple people living in apartments where there was definite COVID-19 problems. There was just a host of things. So every time somebody got involved, then they have to go to the landlord, and it's just a much more onerous process than they thought. They have hired more people. Shannon Haynes, have you heard anything about speed up in the last 3 or 4 days from FERC?
No, I haven't. I can reach out to Brianna though.
Okay. And maybe a report before, because I know that was part of the program, was reporting back to us. Perhaps we could have a report before our next meeting, a week from today?
Yes.
Okay. The other thing I'd like to add to our, one of the things that I think the information coming out of Centura has been weak. I don't, for whatever reason, I mean, we get some updates, some daily updates, but they come through Summit Health and they come late in the day. I don't know if that's something that we can ask them for more timely updates. I mean, not for me, but it seems like there's a lot of citizens that really feel like they need to know how many people are in the hospital from this. And it gives them either a sense of, relief or a sense of, I don't know, whatever, to get it opened up. Is that something we can get?
We can ask.
Okay, let's ask.
You know what, but
I'm not sure which report. I guess I'm not real clear. Shannon, are you on which report they're referencing? I mean, we get the daily incident report, but that doesn't go to the public.
No, I think the things that he talked about today were things that I had not heard before. How many people are hospitalized? How many people have been shipped down to Denver? Sort of what's actually going on at the hospital. We hear 101 cases. Okay, well, what does that mean? I don't even know what that means. I'd like to know, and I think it's important for the community to know how many people are in the hospital, how many people got shipped down to Denver, what's the real impact of this to the community? Because if we keep seeing that there's only 3 or 4 people in the hospital, I think that gives everybody a different level of comfort for opening up the community. if you say 100 people, but you don't actually explain what 100 people means, is that 100 people in the hospital? Is that 100 people at their homes? I think they need to generate more information for us so we can have a level of comfort as we go forward on this.
If you're living close to the bone, you would do anything you can not to go into the hospital. And so that's what I think the hospital numbers are a little bit of a misnomer. I'm more interested how many people have been tested and how many people are positive compared to how many people are tested. But it's all the same. I mean, certainly.
But I mean, the people who are getting tested are the people who are really, really sick.
Exactly.
So it's not like those numbers, I just don't think they mean much at all.
No.
I mean, the truth is we just don't really have data.
I would bet you 4 to 5 times the amount of people are positive than have been tested positive.
Yeah, I agree.
Agreed.
For sure.
We got a couple more minutes left. Does anybody have anything else they want to bring up tonight?
I get a quick question. Is this meeting recorded?
Yes.
And how does someone find a link to this meeting? They go on the town website?
So you can watch yourself or what?
Yeah, I'd like to watch myself a couple more times.
Positive feedback.
What?
Shannon, you know how somebody would listen to the recording, or do we have to post it? I think it's recorded for, secure, just for
posterity.
Yeah.
We should put it on the website if we can.
So I think we have been posting them on the website, and the audio should be available if nothing else, but we'll work with Haley on that and let you all know so we can get that out.
Okay.
Helen says it's posted on the YouTube channel.
YouTube channel? County is.
Okay. I have one. Yeah, there's a
The Town of Breck
YouTube channel. A lot of clips of Jeffrey Bergeron doing stand-up from the old days. All right, I have one last thing. I've sort of generated a list for where we're going with committees. I got Kelly Owens on BTO and childcare. I got Double G and Dick on housing. I got Dennis on BHA. Carlton on events. Aaron on BOSAC. Bergeron is the pro tem. I still have an opening at BCA. I don't know if Gary wants to do a tentative BCA when he wants and take Jeffrey with him, or so think about that, because we need to come up with some decisions by the next meeting. So, and for water, Gary, I thought I'd just take that over.
That's fine.
Great. So does everybody sound okay with those things outside of the BCA?
Yeah.
Yes.
I want to welcome Dennis. We haven't really given Dennis any love.
We could put Dennis on the BCA.
Hey, guys.
No, just welcome to the team. Welcome Dennis to the team.
Welcome, Dennis.
Yeah, Dad.
Tough way.
Good to be here.
Tough way to start your career on.
No, he's better online than in person.
I love the piece in the parking lot with a mask on today. That was good.
All right. Well, thanks, everyone. We're going to adjourn. We have a meeting next Tuesday. In the meantime, as usual, for those of you watching, mayor@townofbreckenridge.com is the way you can get in touch with any of us. We have information at townofbreckenridge.com for anything COVID related or anything else that you have a interest in.
Eric.
Yes.
Sorry. There's a good chance that we'll revise the start time for the work session.
Okay.
Unless you guys want to take a break in between and then go back on. Otherwise, we would try to determine how much time we need and then butt it right up against the 7 p.m. regular meeting.
That's
right?
fine.
Yeah, do the butt up against.
Yeah, you
Okay.
could
No break.
your camera and eat offline. All right, everybody. Thanks for your attention and for showing up. And to the crowd, thanks for all the engagement over these last couple of weeks. It means a lot to the council to have so many people interested in what's going on. We really do appreciate all the questions and comments. And yeah, so thanks. Be safe out there, everyone.